Honestly, I think we have a serious problem when we try to compare SCP-096 to any other monster in pop culture. Think about the xenomorph from Alien, Nemesis from Resident Evil, Slender Man, or even cosmic entities like Pennywise. They all have a pattern, a hunting method, a set of rules that, deep down, we can understand and, in some way, even prepare for. The xenomorph needs a host and hunts you in the dark, but you can hide, set a trap, fight back. Nemesis is a biological weapon that hunts you intelligently, but you can run, hide, or even, with a lot of luck, temporarily disable it. But SCP-096? This thing is absurd. It doesn't need to actively hunt you. It doesn't need a plan, strategy, or motive beyond your own mistake. All it takes is for you, anywhere in the world, for 1 second, to see its face in an old photo, security footage, a distorted reflection, or even a single lost pixel in a panoramic image of mountains you didn't even know existed to sign your own death warrant. And it's this rule, this visual curse, that makes it different from any other horror creature. It's not a predator choosing prey. It's an inevitable reaction, a force of nature that exists only to punish your curiosity, carelessness, or, worse, your bad luck. It's the fear of the inevitable, the anxiety of knowing that, somewhere on the planet, a creature is preparing to find you, and there's nothing you can do. Its pursuit isn't a hunt. It's a death sentence with a set time, and the only sound you'll hear is its desperate crying transforming into the furious scream that precedes your end. Think about it. You could be safe in your home, thousands of miles away, and a simple click on the wrong link, an old photo in a forgotten file, could seal your fate. SCP-096 doesn't need darkness or a specific setting. It only needs a glance, and that glance is the trigger for a chase that only ends with your complete and total annihilation. That's exactly why, to understand the horror it represents, we need to dissect the anatomy of this creature, exploring not just what's physical and grotesque, but what's purely metaphysical and terrifying. SCP-096 isn't just a monster, it's the materialization of the fear of inevitability. It doesn't hide in shadows like Slender Man, nor does it need a complex plan like Nemesis. It's activated by your sight, and from that moment, distance is irrelevant. It will find you. It will cross oceans, mountains, concrete walls, and entire armies. Its pursuit is a force of nature, a tsunami of fury that only calms with your annihilation. It's this certainty, this lack of escape, that puts it on a different level of terror. It's proof that the greatest danger can come from a visual oversight, a moment of distraction. It's an analysis that mixes body horror, psychological terror, and an almost scientific curiosity about what transforms an apparently fragile creature into an unstoppable machine of pursuit and massacre, a horror that begins with a simple glance and ends with the silence of your absence. This is the true anatomy of SCP-096, that of a being that transforms sight into death. In my opinion, the first thing that shocks about SCP-096's anatomy is the brutal contrast between its form and function. Look at it, a humanoid approximately 7 feet 10 inches tall, with muscle mass suggesting severe malnutrition, pale skin without pigmentation, and long, thin, disproportionate limbs with arms about 5 feet long. It's the antithesis of the muscular, imposing predator. When in a calm state, it's the image of fragility, huddled, shaking, crying and babbling, desperately trying to hide its face with its hands. It looks like a victim, a being in eternal suffering, trapped in constant panic, as if ashamed of its own existence. But this appearance is a biological lie, a cruel disguise. Its body is a carnage machine waiting for the trigger. How does such a skinny and apparently fragile organism manage to run at documented speeds, starting at 22 miles per hour, and scaling to speeds that the Foundation had to censor? The theory is that, in its enraged state, its body undergoes an anomalous transformation that transcends known biology. These aren't common muscles or bones. It's a structure that operates under its own laws, where physics seems to be merely a suggestion. Theoretically, its body must have an instantaneous regeneration capacity and bone and muscle density that defies physics, activated by the state of fury. Think of an adrenaline rush that never ends, combined with a biology that instantly adapts to support the stress of pursuit. The jaw, which opens 4 times wider than a human's, is just a grotesque detail of an organism that transforms into a ballistic projectile of flesh and hatred, focused solely on reducing the target to an unrecognizable mass. This thing is absurd, and the only explanation is that its anatomy is governed by total anomalous interference, where the will to reach the target overcomes any physical or logical barrier. It's as if fury itself is the engine that rewrites the rules of biology, transforming what was fragile into something indestructible. A maximum example of body horror that becomes a weapon of mass destruction. The pale skin and lack of pigmentation, including in the eyes, suggest a creature that doesn't need light or vision to exist, reinforcing the idea that its perception and strength come from a much deeper and anomalous place. If we were to attempt a pseudoscientific explanation, we could theorize that SCP-096 possesses a type of hyperdense muscle and bone tissue that only manifests in the Fury state, or that its cellular structure is capable of accelerated regeneration at levels that defy thermodynamics. It doesn't just run, it propels itself with a force that should disintegrate its own bones. It doesn't just ignore damage, it absorbs it and converts it into energy for pursuit. It's the anatomy of the impossible, a body that exists only to break yours. The fact that it shows no signs of higher brain functions in the calm state, but demonstrates relentless determination in the Fury state, suggests that its anatomy is actually a vehicle for an anomalous force that uses it to fulfill its purpose. It's a body that becomes the very definition of a biological weapon, but one that's only activated by a psychological trigger. This anomalous interference leads us directly to its sacred rules and core abilities, which are the heart of its terror. SCP-096 is essentially a living weapon programmed for a single function: elimination. The trigger is the face, and the response is inevitable pursuit. The most bizarre thing is that it has an innate sense of target location, regardless of distance. It doesn't need GPS, smell, or vision. It knows where you are, and that certainty is what breaks us psychologically. This isn't altered biology. This is something that breaks any scientific logic. It's cosmic terror, manifesting in a skinny body. Once activated, it becomes an unstoppable predator. Containment breaches, failed missions, entire teams eliminated, destruction of vehicles and facilities. All this is just the trail of destruction it leaves in its path. Heavy weapons, gunshots, explosions, it ignores them. Its focus is absolute, and it only turns off after the target is completely destroyed. Think about the Bathyscaphe incident. It traveled thousands of miles, dove to 35,000 feet in the Tonga Trench, and broke through the steel hull to complete its mission. The crushing pressure of the depths, which would destroy any human and most submarines, was simply ignored. This shows that its threat level isn't just in brute force, but in the fact that any visual carelessness, anywhere, can initiate a chain of inevitable death. It's the personification of absolute consequence, a judge and executioner that accepts no appeal. The creature moves with a determination that transcends pain and survival instinct, as if its very existence depended on completing the hunt. It's a killing machine that only stops when its anomalous programming code is satisfied, and that satisfaction is the total annihilation of the one who dared to look. The Foundation has tried everything, from heavy military tactics to using other SCPs, but the only way to contain it is to ensure that no one, ever, sees its face. And this dependence on such a fragile visual trigger is, ironically, its greatest strength and its greatest terror. Think about containment breach incidents. We're not talking about a monster that escapes through a hole in the wall. We're talking about a creature that, in its state of fury, has demonstrated the ability to completely ignore physics and material resistance. It doesn't just run, it passes through obstacles. It doesn't just destroy, it disintegrates what's in its path. Incident reports show entire mobile task force teams being eliminated in minutes, armored vehicles being torn like paper, and high-security facilities being compromised. SCP-096, in this state, is a force of nature that cannot be negotiated with, detained, or destroyed by conventional means. Its absolute focus on its target makes it immune to distractions, pain, or military tactics. It's the definition of an inevitable pursuit, and the trail of destruction it leaves is a testimony that, when the trigger is activated, the only thing that can stop it is the observer's death. That's why its threat level is classified as Alpha, not for its brute force itself, but for the ease with which the trigger can be activated, and the impossibility of stopping it once in motion. It's the Foundation's logistical nightmare. But what goes on in this creature's mind? This is the darkest and perhaps most tragic part of its anatomy. SCP-096 lives in a cycle of suffering. It cries, hides, shakes. It's a creature that seems ashamed of itself, or perhaps is in constant pain from its own existence, as if its anomalous form were a prison. And then, the trigger. The transition from fragile victim to unstoppable predator is brutal. Is this hatred, pain, extreme shame, or just anomalous programming that forces it to react? Honestly, I think it can be interpreted as a metaphor for the fear of exposure. The idea that being seen triggers something monstrous in you, that your vulnerability is your biggest trigger. It's the dread of being hunted without even realizing you've made an irreversible mistake just by looking at the wrong place. And this creates additional psychological terror. You never know when, unwittingly, you've already looked at the wrong thing. However, there's a deep reflection here. Even being a monster, SCP-096 can also be seen as a victim of its own existence code, trapped in a perpetual cycle of crying and massacre. It doesn't choose to hunt. It's forced into it by a rule that even it doesn't seem to understand or control. It's the personification of pain that transforms into violence, a being that only finds peace in the destruction of its trigger. It's a cosmic drama, a creature that cries for its own nature, but is forced to be the terror of all who see it. Its crying, before the fury, is the sound of its own despair, the lament of a creature that knows what it's about to do, but is unable to stop. It's the pain of being a monster, and that pain is what makes it, paradoxically, one of the most human SCPs in its suffering. The transition from one state to another is almost a phenomenon of anomalous dual personality. In the calm state, it's passive, almost catatonic, focused only on hiding its face. In the fury state, it's pure determination and violence. This duality suggests that the visual trigger doesn't just activate it, but temporarily reprograms it, transforming pain into directed hatred. It's as if the shame of being seen is so intense that the only way to relieve this pain is to eliminate the source of the gaze. The metaphor of exposure is powerful. We live in a world where we're constantly observed, and SCP-096 reminds us that being seen can have catastrophic consequences. It's the fear that our vulnerability, once exposed, becomes our executioner. It's a terror that transcends the physical and settles in the psychological, making us question every image we see and every reflection we ignore. SCP-096 is our fear of being judged, seen, and finally punished for something beyond our control. And this leads us to the mystery of its origin and functional immortality. Theories abound: a deformed human, an experiment gone wrong, an extra-dimensional entity, or something that has always existed. What matters is that there's no easy end for it. Even if the Foundation contains it, the risk is always there. A forgotten photo, a leaked file, a security camera, any lost image in the world could be the trigger for a new tragedy. It possesses a kind of functional immortality. Perhaps it could be physically destroyed in theory, but the cost and risk are so high that the Foundation can't afford to try. Its existence becomes, in practice, a perpetual sentence of fear and containment. It's not just a dangerous monster, it represents the kind of horror that not even the Foundation itself truly understands or controls. Something made to remind us that not everything can be explained, predicted, or defeated. It's the pinnacle of terror that the Foundation tries to contain, an anomaly that defies the very idea of containment because the trigger is in something as ubiquitous as the image. The idea that the only way to stop it would be the total destruction of the planet, eliminating all images and witnesses, is what makes it an existential horror. It's proof that containment is fragile, and that humanity is just one look away from annihilation. Origin theories vary, but they all converge on one point. SCP-096 is a cosmic error. Was it a human who underwent extreme mutation, as some fan theories suggest, transformed by pain and shame? Or is it an extra-dimensional entity that manifested in our reality, bringing with it rules of terror that defy our understanding? The truth is that the Foundation doesn't know, and maybe it's better that way. The mystery of its origin only increases its terror. What we do know is that it's functionally immortal. Even if it were possible to disintegrate it, the probability that a single cell would survive and regenerate, or that the anomalous trigger would simply transfer to another form, is too high. Containment, in this case, isn't a solution, but a perpetual postponement. SCP-096 is the monster that reminds us that not everything can be explained, predicted, or defeated. It's the pinnacle of terror that the Foundation tries to contain, an anomaly that defies the very idea of containment, because the trigger is in something as ubiquitous as the image. It's our failure, our vulnerability, and our fear that the universe is much crueler and more random than we dare to imagine. In the end, is SCP-096 just a broken creature that lives in suffering and reacts by instinct? Or is it a living weapon that should never have existed and that not even the Foundation itself can truly control? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell me, is it more terrifying than a xenomorph? More inevitable than Jason? More oppressive than Nemesis? Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more dark analyses like this one.